Welcome back to Brief Recess. This is Under Oath. We are here with our incredible guest, Charlie Goldensohn. And Charlie describes himself as a dude who works on political stuff and was previously a White House staffer and communication strategist who worked on presidential campaigns, including the Biden administration. You can find him online at Shay Chuck. Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you for having me. This is, like I said, very legit and serious and beautiful. Honor to be in here. Yeah, it's very validating.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, you're all over my feed. I feel like you and I, we have similar sort of things that we do on the internet. We talk about very similar subjects. So I was like, we got to get Charlie on the show. And Melissa was so excited too. So it's great to have you. I mean, a lot is happening right now. We're just coming off the heels of an election in New York. We are going into the midterms. I thought that we could just like chat about that generally, right? Sure. I mean, we and you have so many progressive ideals, right? As we are staring down the midterm elections, as we are looking towards the future of what the Democratic Party looks like, we are seeing changes in elections like New York's mayor or Mayor Mamdani, and the things that are happening in our own city. You're a New Yorker, and how those things are kind of impacting national elections. Yeah. Right?
Totally.
What's going on? Right? Like there's so much to unpack. I feel like
there's so much.
If we want to start with like the recent elections in New York.
Sure. One of the things you just said is, yeah, we're New Yorkers here. And like, I think you can look at what just happened in New York directionally in both directions, which is on one hand, we can view this as the beginning of a movement or signs of greater things to come nationally. And, you know, there's a lot of people in the center or on the right who will say that what just happened in New York is not possible anywhere else. Yeah. And I think that's bullshit, right? Like, I don't think there's any validity to that, and we can talk about that. But then on the other side of that, we can also talk about the reasoning for what just happened in New York is also downstream from what's happening nationally, right? So many national issues actually played a extremely important part in these local elections. And of course, this isn't to minimize local policy and local issues. But the reality is, even at the state assembly level, even at the state senate level, even in these congressional races, APAC funding was a significant part of this. Affordable housing was a significant part of this. ICE and the attacks on our immigrant neighbors was a significant part of this. So it goes both directions. And it was a really beautiful, exciting day and moment that we're in. It's hard for me to think of, you know, I'm not an expert on history, but it's hard for me. I'd love to talk to a political historian who could say, here's another time in U.S. history where there was this kind of massive political electoral change happening in such a leftwards direction like this.
What do you think is the reason why that is? Like, was it that people just were sort of who loved Mamdani, and so they were going to vote for who he suggested, or do you think there's just a general mood change? What do you think is the reason?
I think there's 1,000 things. You know, first I'll say is like, I'm not a spokesperson for DSA. I don't work for DSA. So I don't want people listening to think I'm like speaking on behalf of DSA. I'm not. I'm just a voter and a strategist and a person who talks and consumes. But, you know, yes, Zoran's involvement in these races, I think, was pivotal, and not just what ended up happening because of that, but the political weight he was willing to throw around and the risks he was willing to take showed how important these races were. But it wasn't just him, right? Like Zoran, yes, he's the figurehead and he is this incredible once in a lifetime political figure. But New York DSA is an insanely powerful organization now. And it wasn't just Zoran that was engaging in these races. DSA was building this incredible foundation of organizing throughout. And that to me is, you know, one of the biggest strategically like answers to what just happened. Yes, of course, Zoran came in and helped, but like the, you know, hundreds of thousands of calls, hundreds of thousands of doors knocked, and also really strategically choosing where they wanted to fight, right? DSA and Zoran were not endorsing or activating in every race. They were very selective.
Right. We sat down with Laura Dunn a few weeks ago and she let us know in New York 12, Zoran did not endorse a candidate in that race. And, you know, we talked a little bit about how that was actually probably strategic. Right?
Right.
Not doing that. I think a lot of the community in the 12th district is primarily Jewish and is not supportive of Zoran. And I know that she, Laura, I mean, these are quotes from Laura. This is what she was sort of talking about. But yeah, I mean, his endorsement or lack of an endorsement, right, oftentimes signals to voters, right?
Totally.
We see that.
I mean, but it's not, of course, there's New York 12, which for folks listening is like Upper West Side, Upper East Side.
Yes.
It's where Jerry Nadler was the congressman. Now Michael Ashner just won. It was the Alex Borez, Michael Ashner, Jack Schlossberg, George Conway. Like, it's kind of crazy. But like,
it's very splashy.
Very splashy,
Yeah,
and yet very, the spectrum of politics that was in that race was very narrow, right? Everybody was kind of right here.
Yep.
And it makes sense for the electorate there. But then you look at a race like Richie Torres's district, right? Which is, there was an absolute leftist challenging Richie Torres. DSA did not engage in that race. Yeah. Zoran did not engage in that race. And that's not because it's not because I think that like Zoran didn't want to beat Hakeem Jeffries, or Richie Torres, excuse me. It's because they have to choose their battles, right? DSA has X amount of resources. Zoran has to focus his time and his energies, as does his political operation. And so, yes, where they don't endorse and where they don't engage does signal. But I also think it's not just saying, oh, we don't care about this. It's saying like, we're going to be super strategic with where to use our weight, and look at what we just did. And now Richie Torres, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, most likely, like they're probably next.
We were talking about a historian who might sort of tell us about what was or what has or hasn't changed in an election or in a voting demographic. If there has ever been a time like this when people are so keyed into what's happening in politics and why that is, right? I think like, we can't not be engaged right now. It's literally impossible to look away. It's come to a point where in America, just to wake up and exist is almost like activism sometimes, or just like we are all so aware at every juncture, right? Every opportunity, like you almost have to have an opinion about Taylor Swift's wedding. Yeah. You have to weigh in. You have to be engaged politically to sort of understand what's going on with the horses in Central Park. Like you are acutely aware of polarized politics everywhere you turn. And so to enter a voting booth, it's almost like we are an even more informed electorate right now.
That's actually, you know what though? I actually don't agree with you.
You think we're stupid?
I think that there are a lot of people who are sort of digging in and saying, I don't do politics. It's too much. Do you know what I mean? I think we don't. Most of the people that I know don't, but I have got a handful of people in my family who are just like, yeah, I think
it's not for me.
It's not for me.
It's
not for me.
More now than before?
Like, no, not more now. I think less now, but I still think too many.
Sure.
There are too many people who just don't want to engage, who are either afraid or uninformed about what's going on, and they are choosing to sort of sit it out.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that's quite literally, I don't know what was your catalyst and like starting to, feel yourself ranting and talking. But for me, there was a few, but one of them was exactly that, which is like, while I don't think identity should or is everything in politics, there's also times where it is important. Yeah. And like, I'm self-aware of myself. Like, I'm a fucking white guy with a mustache and a deep voice, and I live in Lower Manhattan. Yeah. And I like sports. I like to drink beer. I played college sports. Like, I know my people. I know who my friends are. I know who listens to me. And what got me to the edge, frankly, was like, I'm like you guys, like I am on one end of the spectrum. I am too in the weeds on this shit. I always have been. But I'm at the point, and I got to the point where I was like, and I talk about this a lot, where it's like, when you're dealing with fascism, which is how I view it. Yeah. It is a binary option at that point. Like, you either are engaging with it and pushing back on it, or you are okay with it. Right. And that's not to demonize the people who maybe are too busy or are impoverished and don't have time and have to take care of their kids and work 10 jobs. But when it comes to my demographic, when it comes to the guys that I'm trying to talk to, what I'm trying to ring the alarm bells is to say, hey, fellas, you actually don't have the fucking option to be silent right now. And here's why. You want to be silent? Let me tell you why that makes you an asshole. Let me tell you why that makes you maybe a bad person in the situation. Let me try to be the one to like push you back into the fight. Cause I agree with you. But I guess, you know, a lot of the work is trying to drag those people back, right? And not just back to our end politically, but also just into being politically aware, back to engagement, you know?
When so you say you're trying to talk to your people, right?
Somewhat,
yeah. So, but when you do that, so first, what is your hope? What do you hope happens?
Yeah.
And what actually is happening?
Sure. What is actually happening? Hard to measure, but I have a couple of anecdotes. So like you gave my bio a little bit, like a quick part of that as well was I also came in on the back end of the Kamala Harris campaign in 2024 as an advisor for paid media. And what that basically meant was being a executive producer on like the big premium ads that were running on big cable news, CNN, ESPN, running during football games. And that was also in parallel with all these discussions we are continuing to have about like the manosphere and the alpha bros and males, and we need a Joe Rogan on the left and blah, 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 blah. And like, while I think that those conversations are, valid and necessary, they're also like very surface level to me. It's like, okay, let's get a little deeper.
I also think those conversations are very like prone to rumor.
Yeah.
Like these things, like conversations like that take on a life of their own.
Sure.
And then weight gets ascribed to it that is not necessarily valid.
Yeah.
Like people are like, oh, well, we do need that. And then it's like, oh, well, I heard someone say we needed that, so therefore we need that. And it just kind of snowballs.
Totally. I mean, I think yes, but I do think that when it comes to like Democrats are losing men. Like that is a objective reality. And yes, you can get into the specifics of those demos, but like men generally, like across race, ethnicity, class, it's happening across the board.
Yeah.
And this is to answer your question of like, what am I trying to do? Which is like, I'm trying to get those guys, right? Like I'm just trying to talk to how I talk to my friends at the bar is I'm just trying to simplify. It's not talking down. It's not making it dumb. It's just trying to talk about this stuff in the way I would to my friends. And so that's the goal, is can I get more people into the fold simply by the medium and the format and the ways in which I communicate and look that maybe some people will listen who otherwise won't. In terms of the actual impact, hard to say. I've had a couple of moments though of been like, okay, this is real. One is, I won't name his name, but like one of like the biggest manosphere guys DM'd me after I did a video about him that went viral and was like, hey man, I think I fucked up. Like, can we talk about this a little bit? I was like, yes, that was one. Another was I did a video like calling out Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn and Andrew Schultz after, if you remember Liam, he was like the 5-year-old child outside of Minneapolis who got detained with like the Spider-Man back. Exactly. Yeah. I did a video where I was like, thanked Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn for, keeping us safe from these criminals like Liam. And that video went crazy. And then I got a call from a friend who said, you know that you're the number one trending topic on the Joe Rogan subreddit.
Oh my God.
And that I didn't, I don't listen to Joe Rogan. I don't check, but then I checked and it was the number one trending thing for like weeks and weeks and weeks. And the overall feedback and commentary on it was really positive. Yeah. So my feeling there is like, okay, like it's hard to, we all know social, like it's hard to really know who you're reaching, but that told me like, okay, some of the stuff is getting in front of the right people.
Well, so rarely in life do we literally get a feedback on the page that says what you did had impact, especially in like politics, especially in what we sort of do on the internet. But the people who, like Joe Rogan, supported Trump in the election and have suddenly gone silent on the subject, who are suspiciously have amnesia. Everyone seems to have fallen and hit their head.
Yeah.
No one's standing 10 toes down anymore. You did this, right? People like that got us to this place, right? Yeah. You don't get to walk away now that we're a year and a half in and everyone's getting deported. No, like you stood up for him. So many influencers accepted MAGA money and posted their little video and did their thing. And now all of a sudden they want to be trad wives and do their homemade sourdough. And now they're not talking about politics. You got us into this mess.
Yes.
You don't get to walk away now because none of us can walk away.
We're good in this room, right? like we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But like I think about Liam. I'm like, there are millions of families and children and women and trans youth and immigrants, etc., black, brown, whatever, who like they don't have the option to just be like, sorry, I'm good. Like, your stupid fucking decisions and your lack of engagement, your lack of research, objectively now have downstream impacts that have ruined lives, that have hurt human bodies.
Yes.
And for you not to acknowledge that is not good enough for me. Like, I don't care now if you're starting to critique Trump a little bit. Like, you need to acknowledge your responsibility in that as well. That's how
I mean, people always talk about like, oh, at this company, we're a family. Families don't hold each other accountable, right? Companies need to have accountability. And the same thing has to happen for politics. I don't know. I look at the election results of this most recent election, right? And I think about how much, and not even just in New York, right? I mean, this just happened in Colorado, right? We just had an ultra progressive candidate knock out a legacy 15-year congressperson. Yeah. So excited for it. But then it's also happening at the same time. Today we're recording the Graham Plattner.
Yes.
News just broke like an hour ago before we hit record on this. So maybe we have CJ read us a couple lines about that headline just so we're all on the same page and up to speed.
Yeah, NBC is reporting that Graham Plattner considering his best path forward in Maine Senate race after denying sexual assault claims.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just going to be very pessimistic here.
Yeah.
I think this is so bad for everyone. Like, it's bad. Of course, it's bad for the survivors. Horrendous.
Yeah.
Of course, it's bad for the campaign and the volunteers behind him. But like, this is so bad for the leftist movement generally.
Yeah.
Graham Plattner, fortunately or unfortunately, was another one of these figureheads, right? Like, of the kind of like insurgent left.
Getting rid of the establishment. Democrats, Susan Collins.
Showing that democratic socialism or progressivism or whatever terminology we want to use for that, his specific worldview, can exist in people who do not look traditionally progressive and leftist and who are working class and rural, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And my fear here is that, you know, one of the things that this does right away, the first thought I had was the other Democratic candidate that Plattner was running against in the primary, Janet Mills. She was the selected candidate by Chuck Schumer, right? Quite literally. Schumer's super PAC put a ton of money behind her. It was because of him, reportedly, that she ran. And what I hate now is, like, again, beyond the actual horrendous allegations here, is like, this is now an opportunity for every centrist, conservative, neoliberal to say, see, you lazy idiots, like, you don't know how this works. We know how this works. And they're going to use that to try to go after every lefty candidate right now, from the New York locals to Abdullah Sayed in Michigan to whatever. So just on like a general note.
I know, it's like the exception can't prove the rule, right? Like, this can't be the situation that everyone uses to say, oh, well, we can't have progressive ideals, right? Like, so much condemning Graham and these allegations and support for the victim. I mean, we were just talking on the other day, me and Mélissa, about how hard it must be for women to come forward against men. How hard it must be to think like, this might be one of the only things people say. This might become my story. Hard stop. We've seen it time and time again. Women come forward against a man. Not only is there no accountability, but it also becomes her entire story. That becomes her
so it's
bio.
Like first name, last name, victim of. Do you know what I mean? Survivor of. And that's.
Yeah. It's just wild to think about. And then it literally just happens.
I think it's exactly what you said. It's not, obviously, it is devastating for the victims, the survivors, but it's now painting every liberal candidate, every liberal with the same brush. And what I think is really interesting about that, though, is that the president of the United States is a known sex offender. Those are just the facts. And in spite of that, he not only became president once, took a break, came back, and is president again.
I just feel like, as a Democratic Party, I want to hold us to a higher standard.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that so much to ask for?
I mean, but doesn't it feel, I mean, I've, you know, obviously I've got like a chat group with my friends and all of them women, most of them Black and around my age. And there's this feeling of like every time a story comes out.
Yeah.
And the feeling is like, is every man a piece of shit?
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's happening all the time, right? And it's not just political people. It's you know, athletes and people that at one point or another were important to the community. Bill Cosby, for example, right? I grew up born in the 70s, watching the Cosby Show, and that show really had at the time, a very positive impact on Black people in general. It was like the first time that we had seen a show where it was a two-parent household. They were obviously affluent. They were educated. And to find out later that he was this deviant criminal has had a negative impact. And it makes you wonder, like, well, who can we count on? Who can we count on? Because you want somebody to come in and we want the country to change, to move forward in a positive way. And this stuff keeps happening.
Yeah. I mean, it's repeating what you said a little, but it's like, I think that's one of the reasons that the Plattner thing is so shocking is maybe not the right word, but like awful and sad and just like, fuck.
It's upsetting on every level because you're like upset for the victim, but you're also...
He was set up to be that. Like he was set up to be the exact answer to that, which is no. Look at this healthy version of masculinity and manhood and look what a good man can be and what they can stand for and what they can say. That to me is, you know, and like, not to make it about me, like that is like a core part of what I'm trying to do with my stuff too, is trying to like present another option to this, you know?
I was going to say you do that with your videos. Like you're always speaking to like toxic masculinity, right? And sort of debunking that
in like a non-direct way.
Yes, you
know,
like your existence, I think, is you just existing on the internet. I think is like an antidote to some of that, right? I mean, just by virtue of us sitting down in conversation, right, can be. Not everyone would enter dialogue, right, on that. So I just feel like, yeah, no, you're right. Like these are things where Graham was set up to be this answer to a toxic masculine candidate and to represent those progressive ideals.
And to find out that he's not.
Yeah.
You know, he's not.
It's upsetting. It's upsetting for the victim. It's also like, I'm like, I never trust any one man with any of my shit. So there's no way my future for this country, my vision for America is going to be with some white dude from Maine. Yeah. So I'm like, sorry. Like, that wasn't ever how I saw it going. And so I never put too much value into that. But I do think that there are so many extraordinary progressives that have won.
And can I bring it back to New York? Which I get it. Like we're in New York. It's a liberal bastion and it's the most diverse city in the country. Like I understand that. And yet what we were just shown through Lisa,
Brad Lander,
Claire Valdez, but mainly like Lisa and Claire Valdez in my mind is like, it doesn't have to be a fucking white guy. Like we don't have to like, like the whole idea of like, well, a woman can't win here. And like, I just don't believe that. And that's not me trying to like do that. It's genuine. It's like, they just fucking dominated. Yes. Lisa just beat the chairman of the Hispanic caucus, Espaillat, by 4 points, an incumbent. That is insane. Like they're not just getting by, like they are destroying these candidates. And so to me, again, just proves that like, and this isn't even meant to like shit on Graham Plattner. It's just meant to be like, we can continue to expand the lens and expand the aperture of the ideal candidates, right? Like when people, this is my own personal politics, when people say like, oh, well, AOC would be a great presidential candidate, but nobody will vote for a woman of color. I call bullshit. I'm like, to me, it's like, she's the same answer as Bernie Sanders in the sense of like, once you get her in front of somebody, they really like her. But the problem is you got to get her in front of them for the first part.
I'm so sick of that conversation about nobody's going to vote for a woman of color. I don't think it's true. I think we can't look at Kamala and say, that's it, right? Like it's over, right? her circumstances are so different, and she as an individual, right? What do you think?
You
disagree?
I do. Yeah. I do. I do.
No, and that's why we have a show together.
Right.
I love it.
No, I do, because I think that women in general, women of color especially, are always underestimated, right? And I think this country hates women. And I know that this country hates people of color. And I don't know what needs to happen in order for it to not be like a thing. Oh, it's a woman. It's always going to be that way. And this idea of like what her background was, that she's Indian or she's African American, which is it? And I just think that it feels to me at a certain level, this country's not ready, because they don't want to be. Not because it's not possible, not because women are not capable. We are. But I think that, I think there are too many people who don't think that women can do the job. It's too hard of a job, and that a woman couldn't do it. I know that that's not true, but there is something about this country.
Yeah.
And I can't, I don't know what it is, but that's for me, that's what it feels
I think
like.
a lot of what you said is also like the things people think that they would never say out loud, right? Like people probably think what you just said, that a woman couldn't handle leading the country, but that it's like a thought that they keep to themselves.
I mean, I think some people keep it to themselves, but I think a lot of people say that shit out loud. And they say it out loud with their entire chest. And they say the most, and the misogyny is just horrendous. This idea of like, oh, she's a woman. Well, women get hormonal. Like, do you know what I'm saying? And so I think that a lot of people are saying it out loud.
And it's also like inherent in the conversation around AOC, right? Of like, could she possibly be the candidate? And it's like someone who's accomplished, who's well-spoken, who has a vision for the country, for people to still be like, I don't know. Yeah. There's inherent like misogyny in that, right? Yeah. For people to be like,
misogyny,
is she
racism?
ready? Is she ready? Yeah. I don't know. Do people say that about any white male president? Right? Like, did anyone ever say that about? No. It was never part of that conversation. No. So it just, you're right. Like I think, we can hold two things in our hands at once.
For sure. And I mean, and I think it's getting better slowly, but too slowly. Yeah. I think the fact that there are a lot of women who are being, elected mayor and governor and all those things, I think that is an indication of things changing. But there's something about the big seat that I think that people are still, are still. I mean, I've heard people say that, be like, I don't know if a woman could do the job. I don't like, but they mean it. Do you know what I mean? And this is, and I think that these are people who are sort of well-meaning. Right. But they're legitimately worried about what would happen to the country if there was a woman at the helm.
I mean, this isn't disagreeing. It's more, it's like, yes, and.
Yes, and.
It's, we got to try.
Yes.
Right.
Like, 100%.
And again, not just because like, we need to, not about the identity piece, about the policy piece, which to me is like, the reason I would and want to support AOC, I hope she runs, is because of her policies, right? Like it's very hard for me to think of a singular another prominent national political figure who has that same serious political ethos that Bernie Sanders, which are like my politics. Yeah. And the Zoran ethos, right? And my view, I was on the Kamala campaign at the end, and like, everything you said is true. I think that sexism and racism played an enormous piece of this. I also think that like Kamala Harris was also a flawed candidate in many ways as well, right? As Joe Biden was as well.
Also flawed policies. Her policies were not very progressive.
I got killed online for this, but it was honest, which was like, I worked on that campaign. If you put a gun to my head right now, it'd be very difficult for me to regregurtate to you what those policies were.
The policies
which is crazy. It was hard to understand. And so again, it's not defending what happened there, but it's more, to me, it's like with AOC,
it's a clear
if you can do the Bernie argument, which is like, you got to just get him in the room. You got to force people to listen to him. And once you can get them in the room with him, all of a sudden they're in. And of course, that conversion is going to be much harder with a woman of color from New York. I understand that. But I'd rather take that political bet than send somebody like, I don't know,
Gavin
Cory
Newsom.
Booker or Gavin Newsom or whomstever, whoever else is
Who's just going to be more
It's
like
just gonna be
mealy
more
mouth
of the
establishment.
same.
candidate and
Yeah,
let's
yeah, yeah.
change things and let's like not do universal health care, but we'll give you some tax credit that nobody can figure out. And like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So like that to me, back to the beginning of this conversation, like that should be our learning from what's going on in New York is like people are hungry, not just for change, but for like radical specific things that benefit their lives. They want affordable housing. They want universal childcare. They want universal healthcare. They want cheaper gas. They want cheaper groceries. They want community. They want care. They want a government that shows up for them.
Yeah.
And when you say it like that, it's like, that shouldn't be that hard to put a bunch of candidates forward that have that, you know, or that are offering that.
Right. It shouldn't
least.
be. I want to ask you a question. I know you've said many times that, I mean, we know this to be true, that the Democrats are losing men.
Sure.
Sort of by the buckets, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I mean, one is it's back to, unfortunately, to take it back to the Joe Rogan piece. And again, I use Joe Rogan as like an example of a much larger problem, which is, well, the first thing I'll say is like, Democrats are losing like everybody, right? Our numbers were dropping across the board. So that's just, it was just like the biggest delta was with men, basically. I genuinely think that one of the biggest problems when it comes to men is messengers on the Democratic side. And not just as a party, but progressives, leftists, whoever. When I got off the Kamala campaign, I spent months going around the country, mainly on the East Coast, like talking to donors, talking to political leaders, talking to people trying to fundraise. Basically, I was trying to figure out how do we fundraise and get money to support political creators, independent journalists. And I wanted to help lift up men. I wanted to lift up progressive men to be like, look, there's more people out here. Right. And it was really hard to do that. One of the reasons I started doing the content myself was because people kept coming up to me and being like, well, like, you're a guy, like, you're a dude, like, you talk about this stuff decently. Like, why don't you try it? And I was like, I don't want to. And I honestly started doing it out of frustration. I was like, all right, like, I'll just try this. And so that's a simplified answer, but I actually think it's real. I think that one of the problems is like, we need more people on the left who are men talking to men. They're not delivering scripted talking points that were made in some DNC war room that was like, this is what men want to hear. This is how you talk about football. Like, no, like you just have messengers. Yes. So that's one piece. I also think, frankly, that like on a larger social discussion, like there is a real tangible feeling among men everywhere that there was a war on men, right? I don't agree with that feeling, but you pull men across the country, like there was a feeling of that generally. And, you know, one of my feelings of the kind of like Me Too movement and the post Me Too movement, and this wasn't a failure of action or there wasn't an individual to point at this, but something I say a lot is, you know, there's nothing we could have done in the moment. It's only it's only retrospective. But I think that there was never a kind of like macro offering of telling young men like, well, it's not just what is bad, but here's what's good. Here's actually a better option, right? Yes, we're telling you what a bad option is, but look at this other option of masculinity. Look at this other option of community and work and whatever. And so I think there's many reasons, but I think that like, I do think that like the Democrats as a whole, they did fail to message to men. They did fail to talk to them. They did fail to talk about them about the things that they care about and in ways that they wanted, that they tend to communicate.
Do you see like right now the success of progressive ideals in current elections? Do you see the larger Democratic Party anywhere in any example taking those progressive ideals and incorporating them into upcoming midterm elections? Given the most recent successes with Zoran, with the races in New York.
Yeah.
Is anyone learning from those lessons?
Yeah. I mean, I think, yes, I think. And I think that's something we need to think about and we need to like communicate about is I think there tends to be a kind of like a misunderstanding of like what the Democratic Party is, right? Like there's the DNC, which is its own organization, right? Capital D, capital N, capital C. And the DNC itself, we often in like dialogue and like we talk about it as if it's like in a room with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries like drafting policy. Like that's not what's happening. The DNC is like functionally a fundraising body. Like that's what their job is. Their job is to fundraise and then distribute cash to races around the country and help Democrats win. Then you have like the Democratic Party, like congressional leaders and Senate leaders like Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. So to me, it's like it's two different conversations. And so I think like the Democratic Party, like, we're seeing it, right? There's races that are happening. People are getting moved, are getting pushed left. The DNC is not drafting policy. I think the DNC is going to follow where the voters go. I think, to me, the real question is the institutions, which are the current elected official Democrats. Those are the people who we need to move. And like, they have not proven themselves as moving yet, right? Like, those are the ones who have not, who have not shifted on Israel, or barely shifted on Israel, barely shifted on AIPAC, barely shifted on universal healthcare, and who laugh at the progressive movement as childish or stupid or inefficient, or you don't know what you're doing here. Which, again, not to go back to Graham-Plattner, is again why I think the Graham-Plattner thing is such a disaster. Because now they get the point of that and say, we told you so. You guys don't know what you're doing.
Therefore, come over here. Just put your weight and energy in our races.
Exactly. Trust us. We know how to do this, even though we keep losing elections over and over and over.
Right.
Trust us, But I'll say, like, if they were smart, they would shift, right? Because the other thing I'll say is, like, this whole idea of, like, we need to go back to the middle is such bullshit to me.
God. No, that drives me crazy.
There is no middle, right? Like, that's not how this fake spectrum that we have is non-existent, right? And again, I think that's what, like, Bernie proves, and it's what Zoran proved. Like, people also forget, now I'm ranting, but, like, New York in the presidential in 2024 was the biggest swing towards Trump of anywhere in the country. It's like an 11-point swing. And then Zoran came in and pulled all those people back. And so, like, you can win people who are either Republicans or skeptical of Democrats. You can win them back with policies that they like.
Right.
And again, it's these policies, it's these positions. And so
people are movable, people are adaptable, right? Like, especially if we're talking about these issues that literally affect individuals, right?
They're day to day.
Someone who maybe universal childcare didn't appeal to someone 5 years ago, but now they got a kid,
right?
And they're trying to work, and health insurance premiums just went up $500 a year for them, and so now all of a sudden that is the issue they're voting for now, right?
It's impossible to buy a home. These are things that are important. Gas prices are ridiculous.
They've been renting 15 years. Finally, they just renewed their lease for the 15th year. Okay, maybe it's time to buy a home, and they realize not possible.
But I also think, like, this is, not to keep talking about Israel, but, like, again, I'm Jewish, and, like, this is how I'm very clear on this, how I feel about this. Like,
I wanted to ask you about that. Like, you're a Jewish progressive voice in this space, right? How do you approach it? Like, how do you approach this conversation? Because I know you have Jewish friends as well. Like, how do you talk to them? Family,
I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible. But, like, I just felt like, and continue to feel like, how fucking dare you use my name to justify any of this, right? Like, they decided to make it personal by conflating Judaism with Zionism, by conflating Judaism with the state of Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu. Like, the moment they did that and used my family and my family's history and my community to defend a genocide, I said, then, like, absolutely not. Like, that's unacceptable to me. That's been one of the most incredible things about the last year of this content is these discussions around Israel, because the amount of positive, I mean, I get destroyed, of course, when I talk about Israel, of course, but I also get so much positive feedback from not just Palestinian Americans and Palestinians, but Jewish Americans who are like, thank you for saying this. I felt these things, but I haven't had the words to describe them, or I feel these things, but I'm terrified to say this to my dad or to my uncle or at my synagogue. And so I personally believe that, like, the most important voice in the room right now, unfortunately, like, is Jewish Americans speaking up against these things, because those are the people they're the only ones who can say, this is bullshit, this is genocide. And they're the only ones who people can't point at and say, you're being an anti-Semite. Because, sorry, I'm not an anti-Semite. I'm Jewish. Hate to break it to you, So, like, it's up to, I think, unfortunately, the weight does fall on our shoulders here. Like, we have to speak up against this stuff.
What about the argument that, so you as a Jewish man, and if that's your stance, then, you are a victim of, like, self-loathing. Do you know what I mean? You must hear that a lot.
Self-hating Jew. Yeah. I did a whole video on this. I said, can you please explain to me what a self-hating Jew means? Can somebody, like, write it out? Like, what does that mean? Genuinely. I don't understand. Do I hate myself? Do I hate my family? Do I hate my history? What do I hate? What does that mean? So, to me, it's just a ridiculous talking point. It doesn't make sense to me. No, what I hate is people justifying genocide and killing with any group of people. Like it doesn't have to, it could be anybody, but I just happen to be a Jew,
Yeah.
you know? And, you know, for me growing up Jewish, my family was being Jewish was political. Like being Jewish and being political was Jewish. Like what Judaism was in my family was quite literally like, it was learning about oppression and it was learning about genocide and it was learning about imperialism and it was protesting. And I grew up going to anti-Afghanistan war protests and pride parades with my parents with my little sign. And like, it was always very clear to me that like, this is a Jewish act. Like that is what Jews do. We stand up. And so to me, October 7th and everything after and the reaction after it remains confusing to me for many reasons. But one just being, I'm like, like, how can you say that we're a people who've experienced like immense harm and damage and then choose to inflict that on another person? It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't work. But to bring that back to the kind of like everyday kitchen table political issues that we're talking about, I also think that's one of the reasons, and I think this is one of the reasons that a lot of Republicans but mainly like moderate Democrats, what they're missing here is that I think Israel, and by Israel, I mean like Israel's actions in Palestine and Gaza, one of the reasons it becomes such an important issue for voters who that they didn't think it would be an issue for is because it's a litmus test in the sense of it's like, if this politician can't be honest about the slaughtering of this family, how the fuck do I expect him to care about me? Like, right? And I think it was like Coates said this. It was like, if we can't trust them with genocide, how are we going to trust them with democracy? Right? Like that to me it's completely true. And I think that that's why this is such a potent issue with so many Americans who otherwise wouldn't care about foreign policy. Is because if you're telling me to deny and lie to myself about what I'm seeing with my own two eyes, about families and children being slaughtered. Yeah. Of course I don't expect you're going to fight for me and my struggling family. Why? How would that ever make sense? So to me, it's the Israel issue, the Gaza issue it shines a light on how these politicians view the kitchen table problems. If you don't care about this, how could you ever care about it?
Well, it came up with Zoran in the debate. What would be the first country you would visit as mayor of New York? And his answer was, why do I need to visit any other country? This is the race for New York City. So I was going to be here. That was my plan, was to be the mayor of New York City, where I'm running for mayor. Yeah. So it was like, it was like,
oh, you can say that?
Oh, right. And like the whole internet, right? Yeah.
Right. That this idea that you can answer the question like that. You don't have to
win
say,
the election.
You don't have to say, oh, I'll go wherever. You know what I mean? Yeah. Let me ask you really quickly. I know you said that you asked your audience define a self-hating Jew. Yeah. And so I'm sure you got lots of crazy answers, but was there anybody who, even if you disagreed with what they said, who gave you like, you're a self-hating Jew because of da-da-da-da-da-da? No?
No.
Okay.
I didn't really feel like I did.
Okay.
No, I felt like there was a complete failure to deliver on what like it doesn't mean anything. So no. Okay. No, my answer is no. Nobody had a good answer.
No one had a good answer for you. Okay. Right. Well, if you want to fight in Charlie's comments, where can they find you?
Thank you. I would appreciate some more my online name is Chezchuck, ChezChuck. It's on Instagram and TikTok.
And if you're angry, just DM him, right? I think that's what you want. Yeah.
There will likely be some larger projects coming soon.
That's exciting.
That I can talk to you about soon. But yeah, right now it's just there. Great. And amazing shows like this. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us.
This was great. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
And
this was great.
Come back when you do whatever your next big thing is.
We'd love to hear about it.
We'd love to see you again.
We'll be right back.